If you are an owner, CEO, or president of a company, then I don't need to tell you how important it is that people in your organization are aligned with your business strategies and your vision. So a lot of people don't want to talk about the conflict that they have in their management teams, particularly the senior people. Unfortunately, employees and customers can tell. For the employee, it leaves a feeling of uncertainty, and they don't know what it is that they're supposed to do. Whose message do they follow in the senior management team, especially if there's different messages coming at them? When our customers notice, it can be even more detrimental. Maybe they'll lose faith and trust that we can deliver what we say that we are there to help them with. Why does conflict happen? It's not your fault. This is a very human thing that all of us have. We are all very different as people, and we have our own perspectives. And whether or not it is nature or nurture, it's probably both. But we know that when we were little kids and we were born with certain traits, and then we took our own unique pathways through our learning based on what our abilities were and also what our interests and other opportunities that we had for learning. Parallel to our learning, our life experiences at home and later on with work have all influenced how we are developing in our intellect, in our mindsets, and our self-management. The differences among us make it very difficult to lead and participate on work teams. There's a lot of complexity, and the people are always evolving. We're always developing, we're always learning, and we're bringing things sometimes even from our home lives into the workplace, and this certainly impacts how we get along day to day. The other thing we tend to do as individuals is strongly advocate for our perspectives. And if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that we could look at the different levels that we have, like we are showing in the slide, and that Maslow talked about how we have to satisfy a lower need before you can address a higher need. So you have to look after a person's feelings of security, or they have to make sure they're fed before self-actualization is going to take place with the person. And we find the same thing in organizations when we're dealing with conflict. You have to deal with the feelings first. You can't get into process or it's going to fall flat. As a leader, if we gain an understanding of why it is that people behave the way that they do, it gives us tools for us to self-manage if we find ourselves in a situation where our own emotions have been activated. If we lead through our own change, we can greatly reduce and even eliminate a lot of the conflicts that our teams are experiencing. Managers and employees are looking to the leader as an example and as a model. Where do you have to start? The learning process for all of us starts with greater self-awareness on how we are interpreting other people's reactions and the things that they say. Very often, we are responding emotionally not to what the person has actually said, but to what we think that they are meaning or intending by the words that they said. It isn't really the person that we are interacting with that is activating our feelings. The other person is saying something, and rather than listening to the literal words that the person is saying, we have a story that is going on in our heads about what that person is intending toward us, or toward the work, or toward the project, whatever the topic is. And it is that story that is causing the emotional reaction, and not really the other person's words. One of the best exercises I've learned about that deals with self-awareness and being able to identify when we are telling ourselves a story instead of listening to the actual words of another person comes out of the book by Peter Senge called The Fifth Discipline Field Book. And this was written in 1994, so it's been in print for a little while. And we're going to go through the exercise that they talk about on page 246, which is called the left-hand column exercise. This is how you complete the left-hand column exercise. Think of a situation you've been in recently where you had a disagreement with someone. This can be your business partner and yourself. You can't agree on an important decision. A team member isn't following through on commitments they've agreed to. You feel you were treated unfairly in an exchange. You believe your ideas or point of view was discounted or ignored. A situation like this, where you feel that you could have been better represented in that exchange, but that didn't happen. Step 2, take a blank piece of paper and we're going to split it down the middle, just with a black line. At the top of the left-hand column, write what I was thinking, and at the top of the right-hand column, write what was said. Step 3, record the words that were spoken exactly as you remember them being said. And we can think of ourselves like a video camera, and we're only able to give what the actual words were, what we heard. We could sometimes even put in body movements or things we saw, but video cameras do not interpret. They give you the exact replay of how the event happened without a judgment or without any commentary about what either side was thinking. Write the discussion and start with the person who, as you remember, opened up the exchange, and then how the whole dialogue went from one person to the other. Take as many pages as you need, because it may not fit all on one sheet of paper. You might have to do multiple pages. In the left-hand column, you're going to write what your thoughts were as each moment of the conversation took place. What were you thinking in your head as that other person was speaking? And what were you thinking when you were speaking and holding back the things that you didn't say? When you've finished with the entire conversation, as much as you want to recount on the page, then now's the time for reflection. This is the next step. Was there anything in your left-hand column that might have actually contributed to extending the conflict? Was there something that you were holding back that you didn't want to contribute because of the feelings that you were having about the situation? And that one is a little bit tougher. It's okay. We have all done this. We all do this. We will continue to do this because we're all learning in our self-management and in our communication. What's really important is that we're able to examine our own thinking, and then we can make decisions about how we want to do something different in the future. And that's the whole point of the left-hand column exercise. So here, the next part of the left-hand column exercise is we determine if we could replay this whole thing again, this whole scenario. Is there something more productive that we could say or do in these moments when we're having conversations and we find ourselves getting activated? The best way to know and to learn from it is to take something like we have already experienced, like you just did. When we are writing out the script of what it is that we would like to do in the future, we're thinking about what are the things that you would like to say differently, even maybe about your demeanor. How would you like even to present yourself in terms of your feelings or your physicalness in the exchange that didn't happen in this last exchange used in this example? The last step of the exercise is you're going to take that future script and you're going to action it. Not literally. We're going to do a brain trick. Research has shown if we stand up, take our script, and we walk around as we are reading, we're able to remember, but we also have almost a sensory recall of how we want to appear to the other person, how we want to maintain ourselves in terms of our emotions and how we're present in the room. The other benefit of the left-hand column exercise is it's helping us to identify where our misunderstandings are and where we are having assumptions about the other person. There's a caveat that I need to mention at this point, and that is all judgments and labels about other people are to stay in our left-hand column. It isn't realistic for us to say or ask you not to have those thoughts. We all at times are having judgments and labels that we're attaching to people and situations. And they even have a bias name for it. It's called a fundamental attribution bias error. So what is that? Well, that error is where we understand that our own behaviors, and sometimes they're even negative behaviors that we don't want, are occurring because we are responding to situations and to our environment. We give ourselves a lot of grace that this is what is true for us, but we don't always give other people that same grace, and that's the attribution error. In that case, we may believe that the other person has a personality flaw, that they are behaving because this is the way they are and this is the way they've always been and they always will be. And that isn't fair. Just like ourselves, the other person that we are in a conflict with has their own drama that's going on in their mind, and they're telling their own story. And that is usually what the conflict is about. It's these two ships passing in the night that they're not coming to a common understanding and meaning about what each other is intending. And so then we're not able to come to a peaceful solution on what the way forward is. Communication skills can take a long time to learn and gain proficiency in. The preferred way to do it is the way that musicians and athletes train. What athletes and musicians do is they break down the mechanics of what excellence performance is into little steps. And they take one of those steps and then they practice it over and over and over until it is perfect and before they move on. Communication training is the exact same way. If we would break down communication into these small steps and then learn each part perfectly before we moved on, we would gain a lot more proficiency and perhaps even quicker than what we do. It isn't always feasible, particularly with groups of people like we have in senior management teams and with busy people that are running companies, to expect that they may be able to put the time in that an athlete or a musician does that's getting paid to do that work, or they're trying to perfect an art. We can hack this learning a little bit for a group. And this is precisely why self-assessments have come into the market, because this is exactly what they're supposed to do. And self-assessments, I mean things like Myers-Briggs and DISC and MAP, and we use the Print, Colby, and Clifton Strengths. All of these various tools have been developed for people to understand what are their natural way of being, and then how are other people different. The benefit in doing these self-assessments or psychometric tools, whatever name you want to give to them, is it's a very quick way to get somebody to tell us what it is that they're like. Usually it would take years of conversation with a person before we might find out what are their values, or what are the things how do they like to communicate? Do they like to have email, or do they like to sit face-to-face with you? These are all things that we can very quickly come to the heart of if we do a self-assessment with an individual, and even better if we do it with a group. There is powerful learning in a team when you can have an experience together and you have the vulnerability of being able to share something personal about yourself that isn't too personal. It's something public in the sense that other people can see it, so they know about your communication style, or they know about the values that you hold toward your work and how you behave in your work habits. So it's not something too personal, but something that you feel you can share in the group. And then to have it reflected back to you that not only are you perfect, but you're perfect for that something that you're doing in your job. Realize utilizes the Colby A, the Print, and Clifton Strengths assessments, as these give the most straightforward answers on what's the what, the how, and the why of how we interact with each other when we're working closely together. We do this through workshops such as the Friction-Free Leader. At Realize, we work with teams just like yours to overcome conflicts. Don't compromise your vision and your organization's results. Contact Realize. Let us help you realize your potential.